Good morning and welcome to KCPS Homeroom. I'm Justin Robinson. Again, today is for the 3rd and 4th grade students. Hope you all enjoyed class today. Let's get ready to learn with Mr. Morris and reading.
Hello, my name is Samuel Morris and this is Elementary English. Today we're going to go over identifying informational text and explaining relevant text-to-text connections using words to compare and contrast. So I know that sounds like a lot, but in reality it's something that you're probably comfortable with already. Identifying informational text is quite simple. It is just understanding if a text is giving you information or if it's giving you something else. A good way to figure this out is to ask yourself, is the author trying to teach me something? Do I feel like I'm being taught something? If so, it's probably an informational text. Now, it's important once you understand and read informational text to be able to compare and contrast two different informational texts. This is especially important in our current day and age with so much information. You can take the same topic and read two different texts on the topic, be them online or in an encyclopedia or maybe in a textbook or something you heard on social media from a credible source, and compare and contrast those to formulate what you think. So these compare and contrast words are quite vast, but today we're just going to focus on 5. Those 5 words or phrases to compare or contrast are just like, similarly, both, however, and though. So these words are going to help us compare two that are similar or contrast two that are different. And as today is St. Patrick's Day, we're going to read another article like we did last week on the same topic, on St. Patrick's Day. Today's article I found from the Ancient History Encyclopedia that was then drafted by News ELA for our reading. And this is an informational text from a very reliable source. Once we read this article, we're going to draw on our knowledge of what we remember from the article last week and practice comparing and contrasting using those 5 words. So let's read together. Who really was St. Patrick? St. Patrick was born about 1,600 years ago. He is the patron saint of Ireland. He spread the Christian religion in Ireland. Patrick also helped make Irish laws better. His death date is celebrated on March 17. Early life and captivity. We know very little of Patrick's early life. Experts believe he was probably born in England, Scotland, Wales, or France. When he was 16 years old, Patrick was captured by pirates. He was sold into slavery in Ireland for 6 years. Thomas Cahill has written a book about Patrick. Cahill writes that slaves were treated horribly. Patrick did not believe in God at first, however, he began praying because he had nobody else to turn to. Patrick's belief in God kept growing. One night, he dreamed of a voice. The voice said that a ship was ready to take him home. Patrick ran away and boarded a ship to Britain. Patrick's ordination and return. Patrick and the sailors almost starved when they landed in Britain. The sailors doubted Patrick's faith in God. However, when Patrick told them to pray, a herd of pigs appeared. The pigs saved them from starving. Later, Patrick dreamed of a man he knew in Ireland. He knew he had to return to Ireland. Patrick went to a region called Gaul. He studied to become a Catholic leader called a bishop. However, Patrick decided to return to Ireland and help the Irish people. The Irish did not like Patrick at first. Still, Patrick knew about Irish traditions. He used these traditions to help the Irish understand Christianity. One legend says Patrick used a shamrock. Shamrocks have 3 leaves. Patrick used the shamrock to show how the Christian God is similar to ancient Irish gods. Both are split into 3 people. Patrick's mission. Christianity already existed in Ireland when Patrick arrived. However, he made Christianity even more popular. One legend describes how Patrick arrived in Ireland. Many Irish followed the pagan religion then. They were having a pagan festival with a bonfire. The king said nobody else could make a bonfire. Patrick and his followers made their own bonfire anyway. Soldiers tried to put out the fire, but they could not. The king allowed Patrick to continue his mission. Some Irish leaders even became Christians. Patrick did not force the Irish to be Christian. He showed how similar Irish and Christian values were. Patrick spread Christian beliefs by respecting Irish people and culture. Later life and legacy. Patrick founded Christian communities all over Ireland. He also made schools and universities. No other missionary made a difference like Patrick. St. Patrick changed Ireland and the world. So, after reading that article, I have a lot of thoughts. And just like we practiced last week, those 3 steps, read, think, and cite, my initial thoughts are, well, this article seems to be all about St. Patrick, the person, and the Catholic view of him. Specifically, why the holiday was founded. And if I had to guess, I would imagine that this archive, this encyclopedia, was written by some church leaders. One example that makes me think of this is when the article says no other missionary made a difference like Patrick. But there was no information on celebrations, on Ireland, on geography, or on anything else around it. It seemed to just be about Patrick and his life as a missionary. So now to compare, right? If we think back to the article from last week, they're similar. Well, they're similar, so we're going to use that first word on our compare, just like. So the first article is just like the second article because they both talk about St. Patrick, the person, and his life. However, now we're going to see how they're a little bit different using our contrasting words. However, the second article is much more about the person than the holiday. So let's wrap our minds around that one more time to compare how they're similar. You may have used a Venn diagram before, and we're gonna picture in our heads the 2 articles next to each other and think about how they're similar. Well, they're both about St. Patrick. They both talk about his life, about his journey. They both mentioned the trip between Britain and Ireland. Now let's think about how they're different. Well, one talks about celebrations and culture, while another talks more about the religious context. So we can compare and contrast using so many different words, but today, remember, we're focusing on those 5 in the word bank that we talked about at the beginning. So the 2 articles are just like each other, or similarly, they talk about St. Patrick and his life. They both are good to teach, good to use to teach people about St. Patrick and St. Patrick's Day. However, one is more about the person, another is more about the holiday. So now I want you to think, how are these similar? If you were to teach a St. Patrick's Day lesson, now that we know that they're similar and different, which one would you use? Why would you choose that one? So now that you've thought of which article you would want to use, the one about St. Patrick the person or the one about St. Patrick's Day, the holiday, remember, once you've thought and formulated your thoughts, it's important to give credit where credit is due. So if we choose the first one, we can say, I would choose the first article. That's about St. Patrick's Day, the celebration, because I remember reading about food, culture, and different customs, like shamrocks and wearing green. Now, if you chose the other one, I would choose the second article, because I remember hearing about St. Patrick's life and journey. So whichever one you choose is fine. What we're practicing today is thinking, citing, and then comparing and contrasting and choosing the best one, which is sometimes both. So thank you so much for joining me today on St. Patrick's Day, and I hope that you tune in next week as we'll begin to talk about narrative texts, which are a personal favorite of mine. But again, my name is Samuel Morris. This has been Elementary English. Thank you, and happy St. Patty's Day.
Hi everyone, it's time for math, and we're going to start off with our Just Know It. Today I have some shapes that are in a set, and you're going to look at the card and try to just know what fraction of the set is shaded blue. So think, what's the total number in the set and what fraction is shaded blue? Are you ready? Here we go. Okay, look for the part that's shaded blue. And last one. Okay, let's see if you just knew it. Okay, in this set, there are 4, and how many are shaded blue? 2 out of 4. If you said 1/2, you're right, or 2/4. So we have 5, 6. And 3 are shaded blue. So 3/6, another 1/2. Oh, how many in the set? 5, 10, and they're all shaded blue. So 10 out of 10, or all of them, we could say that's like the whole set, one whole set shaded blue. And last one, 1 out of 3 is shaded blue. So 1/3 of this set is blue. Great job with Just Know It. Let's move on to Figure It Out. For Figure It Out today, we're going to be matching fractions larger than 1 to mixed numbers. Now, sometimes people call these improper fractions, but they're still proper fractions in the sense that they have a numerator over the denominator. So I sometimes just call them fractions larger than 1. So take a look. 10/8, 6/4, 12/8, and 9/4. We know that those are all fractions larger than 1 because the numerator is larger than the denominator. So think about how we decompose and we think about the parts that we can break apart. How many 8/8 could you take apart and decompose, and what would you have left? So I'm going to give you a minute to think and look at these mixed numbers to see which ones you can match up. So just think for a minute here. Let's try it out. So if I have 10/8, I could decompose this into 8/8 and 2/8. So I'm going to look for 1 and 2/8. Oh, found it. Awesome. Let's figure this one out. 4/4. I'm going to do this one in my head. 4/4. That means there would be 2/4 remaining. I'm going to look for 1 and 2/4. The mixed number, there it is. Okay, 12/8. If I decompose it into 8/8, then there'll be 4/8 remaining. So 1 4/8. Last one, let's make sure we got it. 9/4. Decompose that. Okay, I could have 4/4, but I can have another 4/4. 2 4/4 equals 8/8. Or, excuse me, 4/4 and 4/4 is 2 whole. That's 8/4, and then I would have 1/4 remaining. So that's 2 1/4. Great job on figuring it out today to match those fractions larger than 1 with mixed numbers. Okay, it's time for what's new. Well, I have our learning target from last week, so let's read that. I can use models, like a drawing, to add and subtract fractions, numerator and denominator. A couple of things we're gonna do. We're gonna add to this learning target. Instead of having a whole new learning target, we're gonna add to it. So I'm gonna cross this out, and I'm gonna put and mixed numbers. So let's break that down. Mixed numbers are like what we just did in the figure it out. So mixed numbers is a whole number with a fraction. For example, 2 1/4. A whole number with a fraction. Okay, and remember, we can think about adding and subtracting. When we're adding, we're finding the sum, and when we're subtracting, we're finding the difference. So today, when we're practicing our what's new bare number problems and our word problems, we're gonna think about how we can use the same learning target from last week to continue using it in a different way with mixed numbers. Let's go. All right, mathematicians, get your paper, pen, pencil, and let's get ready to go. Use a model to find the sum or difference. So sum is addition, difference, we could use subtraction. Let's go. So 3 1/4 minus 1 3/4. These are mixed numbers. I'm gonna start by first subtracting the whole numbers, and I'm gonna get 2 1/4 minus 3/4. Well, I can't do 1/4 minus 3/4, so I'm gonna make 2 whole and then 1/4, and I'm gonna break apart my wholes into fourths. So I have my 2 1/4 here, and I'm gonna take away 3/4. So I'm gonna take away 1, 2, 3, and that leaves me left with 1 whole and 2/4. Okay, let's do some addition. 1 1/3 plus 2 1/3. Okay, 1 plus 2 wholes is 3 1/3 plus 1/3 is equal to 3 2/3. Now I could solve this by drawing a model. I like fraction strips. So I have 1 1/3 plus 2, and I'm gonna add my 1/3 up here, 1/3. So I have 1, 2, 3 wholes and 2/3. Let's take a look at this word problem. RTDW. For summer break, Esmeralda spent 2.5 weeks in summer school and 3.5 weeks at summer camp. How much time did she spend at summer school and summer camp? So I think we're gonna need this information. So we're doing summer school plus camp. That's gonna equal her total time. Okay, so I'm gonna do 2 1/2 plus 3 1/2 equals that total time spent in the summer. So we could do this like we did before. We can do our whole numbers first. So we get 5 1/2 plus 1/2. And I know from last week, 1/2 plus 1/2 is 1 whole. So I'm gonna turn that into a 1 whole, and that's gonna equal 6. So she spent 6 weeks at both camp and school. Last one, RTDW. Let's read it. Jude and Isabel are painting a room. They have 6 gallons of paint. They use 2 5/8 for the largest wall. How much do they have left for the other walls? Okay, so it seems like we're going to be figuring out the difference, taking away what they've used to find the difference. Okay, so let's start by, we just thought about it, so we're finding the difference. So I'm just going to jot that down. Difference, subtract. Okay, so I'm going to start with my equation. 6 minus 2 5/8 equals the amount that they need for the other walls, or they have left for the other walls. Now I'm going to start by doing what I did before, which is doing the whole numbers. So 6 minus 2, I know that like that, is 4 minus 5/8, and that equals my difference, what's left over. Now I'm not really sure how to go about doing this, except for maybe if I draw a model that will help. I'm going to draw. So I'm going to do my 4 holes, but on the 4th one, ran out of space there. On my 4th one, I'm going to divide it into 8. That's going to be kind of small here on my paper. So I'm going to do, okay, there's my 4. I'm going to cut that in half. So now I'm going to take away 5 of those 8ths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I have 3/8 left. So I have 3 holes and the fraction 3/8. 3 3/8 gallons left for other walls. Wrote my sentence, used a model, and showed my thinking. Great job. Way to work through those problems with what's new. Let's move on to try it. Today I have a few more bare number problems. 1 2/4 plus 2 3/4. 5 1/3 minus 2 2/3. Remember, it's good to know it in your mind, but it's better to prove it with a model or a drawing. And let's look at this word problem. Read, think, draw, write. Dewey is making punch. He uses 2 1/2 cups orange juice and 3 1/2 cups apple juice. How much juice did he use? Can't wait to see how you solve those problems. Our time is up today for our math learning, and I just want to continue with our patterns of our high five. So let's do cool firework, and let's end it with a roller coaster. Are you ready? Cool firework, roller coaster. Ready, set, go. Cool, way cool. Shh. Cool, way cool. Shh. Ah. Clickety, clackety, clickety, clackety, clickety, clackety, wee, wee, wee. Thanks so much for watching.
Hello, I'm Mr. Steinauer, and this is 3rd and 4th grade science. Today, we'll be talking about friction in different surfaces, and how the friction of different surfaces affects the motion of an object. At the end of the lesson, I'm going to show you what you'll need to do to replicate or redo the activity that we will do today. As always, let's start by thinking about the vocabulary, the important words and concepts that we'll use during this lesson. Friction is a push force that opposes another force. Today, we're going to use different surfaces and different kinds of materials to move along those surfaces, and we're going to compare how friction affects their motion. So we'll be looking at how that motion might change. Some ways that motion could change would be if we added or reduced speed, or if the object changed direction, changed which way it was going. So let's look at the materials that I have, and then let's see what happens on these different surfaces. Here are the materials that I'm using. I just went around my home and found what I had. You will do the same at the end of the lesson. But for now, let's take a look at what I have. I've got a remote control with big buttons and an empty roll of toilet paper. So that toilet paper roll and the remote control with those big buttons are going to be the two objects that I put into motion using some force of my own. The different surfaces that we will try are these right here. There's one that looks kind of like a whiteboard kind of surface, very, very smooth. Then we have a wood surface that's also smooth. And finally, a towel. Which one of these three surfaces do you think has the most friction? Which object do you think has the most friction of the two of these? Finally, which surface do you think has the least amount of friction force? Well, let's find out. I have two objects that I'm going to roll down my ramp here. And then I've got my two surfaces that I'm actually going to put on top of this. Now my two objects first. My remote control, here's what it looks like, spin it around, and my toilet paper roll. Which one of these is going to have more friction force on its surface? That's right, the remote control will have the most friction force. And that's because of the bumpiness of all those buttons. And then also, while the other side is smooth, you can see it's almost like the heel of a shoe, right? So it's got kind of a bump here on the back where those batteries get put in. So on either side of my remote, it's a little more bumpy. You'll have a little more friction force than on the smooth outside of a toilet paper roll, which is also round, which we already know is going to roll quite well. So the first surface that I'm going to test is the towel. Now I like to use things that I can find really easily in my home. I like for you to be able to use objects that you can find easily at home as well. So think to yourself about the surface of a towel. How would you describe the surface of a towel? I would say that it's a little bumpy, maybe rough, certainly more rough than just the wood on its own. So maybe you might not have access to a towel like this. Maybe you have access to something else that has a similar texture, because that's going to have a similar friction force as well. Now let's roll our two objects and see which one rolls faster. I'm actually going to adjust my towel here so that I make sure it clings to the back and it doesn't move. So that is being held together by friction force and by gravity pushing down on the couch. All right, taking my two objects, which one is going to roll faster? Let's find out. Now I could say let's test that again, but it's pretty clear which one of these has more friction. The friction of the remote control of those button sides and the friction on the surface of the towel made it so that the remote control didn't even move. There's enough friction force coming from the towel and from the remote control that those forces are both pushing against gravity pulling this down the ramp. We already saw how this is a ramp here and a pretty steep one. Look how this rolls pretty quickly. And the toilet paper roll, of course, wasn't really affected as much at all by the towel here. Now, a way that will really show the difference in friction force on different surfaces will be if we use a second surface here. So a reminder here, I am using two surfaces, but I also have one material that serves as my ramp. So I can just put these surfaces right back on here. And then they'll stay. Again, we have our remote control and our toilet paper roll. Which one is going to roll faster? And why is that? Well, let's put them to the test. 3, 2, 1. Now this is a much smoother surface. This feels just like a whiteboard at school does. But even then, the remote control is moving very, very slowly. As it turns, it's getting pulled down, and there's still a friction force that's pushing against that pull force of gravity. If I adjust the shape of my remote control, you might think there's less friction force from this angle, or rather there's less friction force here than there would be here. But either way, there's enough friction force that the remote control is not just going to slide down like if I put it on its backside. It will slide right down. So one side of the remote has way less friction than the other, and that is because of its surface. So when an object is in motion, we talked about in a previous class how that object will stay in motion unless another force acts on it. This remote control will stay in motion unless there's enough friction to keep it from moving. And it will also stay at rest until another force makes it move. And the force of gravity in this case is not very powerful compared to the friction force on the surface of the remote. Now thinking about our toilet paper roll again, either surface, it's going to roll pretty quickly. But it rolls much quicker on, it rolls much quicker on the surface with less friction than it does, say, on the towel. Not so fast there. Versus very fast here. So friction, even with an object or a surface that doesn't have a lot of friction, friction still is a force that plays a role. Now it's your turn. You're going to recreate this demonstration of friction's effects on different surfaces from your home. Find a very smooth surface, a more rough surface, and find two different objects with different surfaces of their own. Compare the effect of friction on the objects as they move, and share that with a loved one. You may even go the extra step of finding some sort of material to use as your ramp. But of course, this would also work just on the floor. You'd have to give it a little more push to see really how friction will affect it, though. That's the only difference. Until next time, my friends, it's been my pleasure, as always, having you in class. My name's Mr. Steinauer, and I'll see you next week.
Welcome back to PE with Coach K, also known as Karina Jones. We are in our segment of one of the health-related fitness components, muscular endurance and strength. So in the beginning, we went over cardiovascular endurance and different fun activities that we can do at home to improve our cardiovascular endurance. And then we moved on to muscular endurance and strength. And I demonstrated 3 different exercises that you can do at home to improve your muscular endurance and strength. And last week, we did a plank tap challenge that I challenged you to go against me to see how many points you can get, which was just a fun way that you can improve your muscular endurance at home. Now, like I told you before, I have another challenge for us that we are going to do today. So maybe gather some people around the house. Everybody can compete against one another, or we can compete against each other. So let's go ahead and warm up first before we go into the activity. So make sure you have space wherever you are and have a water bottle close nearby in case you need it. So if you need to pause the video, get your space ready, come back, we'll warm up for this challenge. You might as well go get everything you need, right? So you will need a chair, or maybe you have a stool or a tray table, whatever works, that you can use to place a paper plate. Don't grab a glass plate. Get a paper plate and put it on top of the chair. You also need another paper plate to go right on the floor, along with change, coins, any type of money you may have, coins, or if you don't have any change or cents, you can use balled up sheets of paper that are the shape of coins. So it's up to you, or maybe you have little items at home that you can place on a plate, but you want enough to be able to fill the plate. And lastly, you are going to need 2 plastic cups. One right here and one right behind. And I will tell you the exact distance once we get into the activity. Get everything you need: a chair, 2 paper plates, coins or paper balls, any small items you can put on a paper plate, and 2 plastic cups. Press pause, gather everything that you need so that you're ready to go, and we can get right into the challenge. So let's warm up. Same warm up that we've done before. We'll start with our arm circles and our kickbacks with our crossover, and then we will do our circulation of the wrist. So let's start with arm circles for 30 seconds. Warming up the shoulders. Maybe you do one arm at a time. It's up to you. Remember to go at a warm-up pace just to get the shoulders warm and create more mobility in your upper body. About 8 more seconds, we'll go with this. Maybe you want to add some legs with it. It's up to you. Make it your own. 3, and stop. Next, crossover with the arms and a butt kick with the right and the left. Remember, alternate which arm goes on top. And just let your arms just flap across. You don't have to keep them tight like this. But just to loosen up the body, get the blood flowing, get your heart rate going just a little bit. Not too much because it's just a warm-up. Keep your bottom, warming up the quads. We'll go for 5 more seconds. 3, 2, and 1. And our last warm-up, warming up the wrist. So interlock your fingers. Move your wrist in a circular motion. Remember, it's normal if you hear a couple cracks. It's okay as long as it's not painful. Keep rolling. Maybe you want to add a wave to it. This will create a combination of muscles being warmed up. Shoulders, arms, wrists. About 5 more seconds. 3, 2, and 1. Warm up is done. So once again, for this challenge, it is called the Walk Out Plank Challenge. So you need a chair, a stool, or a tray table, anything that you can sit a paper plate on top of. You have your 2 paper plates, one on the chair, one on the floor that has coins, rolled up papers, any small items that you can fit on your paper plate. You have 2 cups. So for your plastic cups, 1 cup is going to be your starting position. So you know where to start every time. Your second cup, you're gonna have to get out in a plank, high plank, and look at where your body is, and you line your plastic cup right over your chest. So that is how you determine where the second plastic cup goes. So once again, coming back, you have your starting point for your first cup, and it will go along with your second cup right in front of it, that's right in line with your chest. Now, your paper plate should be just a little bit above or in front of your head. So not too far out, so make sure you can reach to it. If your arms are short, you may have to move that just a tad bit, but make it work for you. So in this challenge, your goal is to see how many points you can get in 1 minute. Now, the way that you earn your points is by grabbing a coin or whatever item you may have on your paper plate while in your high plank position. You have to grab 1 coin, put it on the paper plate that is in the chair, walk back, come up, and then walk back down. Grab another coin, turn, put the coin down, walk back, and come back up. Now that's 1 point for every coin that you put, or every item that you put into the paper plate on the chair. You are going to see how many points can you get in 1 minute. Remember, we'll start here. We'll walk out in our plank, grab a coin, place it in the other plate, walk back, 1 point, and you'll keep going for 1 minute. Let me reset so we can start together. So make sure you have everything lined up. Your chair shouldn't be too far away from you. That way you can reach over. So if you need to practice and make sure that your arm is long enough to reach over, you can. Keep your core tight. Keep your back straight. Don't have your bottom out in the high plank, or don't have your hips towards the ground. We are going to see how many points can we get in 1 minute. I challenge you. So get ready. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Drop down, walk it out, grab a coin, place it in another plate, walk it back. And let's keep going. Take your coin, walk it back, and come back up. Grab a coin, walk it back, squeeze your core the entire time. Keep going, make sure you breathe, don't hold your breath. Inhale and exhale. Walk it out. Now, if you need to go slow, you can. This is your body, your pace. You do what you can do, but we got 10 seconds. Don't worry about keeping up with your points, because your coins or items you have determine how many points. 3, 2, 1, and woo! Stop. Okay, so let's see how many points I have. So we're going to take my plate, and I have 1. And if you need to see, just so you know I'm not lying. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 points. I was able to get 10 points in 1 minute. So how many points were you able to get in 1 minute? And if you have points, we can throw a little math in there. count how much money you made in 1 minute. So let's see how much I got. See what I can afford to get. So I have 4 quarters. No, I have 3 quarters. So 3 quarters, 25 cents each. We are at 75. Put that off to the side. I'm going to take my dime. 75 plus 10, 85. Then I'm going to take my 2 nickels. We'll just make it as a dime, so I'll keep going up 10. Oops. 85 plus 10. I hope you said 95. And then I have 4 pennies. 1, 2, 3, 4. 95 plus 4. 96, 97, 98, 99. I almost got a dollar. But I got 10 points in 1 minute, and I made 99 cents in 1 minute. So, how many points did you get, or how much money did you make? Challenge yourself at home. Do this again. Maybe try to improve your score in 1 minute, or improve how much money you made in 1 minute, or take the time up or reduce the time. Whatever works for you, so you can see improvement in your muscular endurance while having fun. So thank you for joining me. Hope to see you next week.
All right, welcome back to our next segment, okay? Today, we're not going to do much playing, so we won't be needing the drumsticks, going to set them to the side. We won't be needing the practice pad, going to set it to the side. But we're going to do some theory, okay? Music theory. I want to make music theory so simple that you can, it's like eating cake and ice cream, okay? So it's going to be real simple. So the first thing I want to deal with is really time signatures, okay? We dealt with it some in our previous segment, but I really want to dig into it a little deeper on this so that you can understand, so we don't have to worry about going back to that later on as we progress on to our next segments, okay? So let's talk about time signatures, all right? So you have a normal time signature, which is like 2/4 time, 4/4 time, 3/4 time, okay? But then you have those irregular time signatures that's like 3/8, 9/8, 7/8, 12/8, 5/8. If you think of like odd numbers, those are irregular time signatures, okay? Those are those weird ones. And you see it in music. So if you get going really well in your music and you want to jump into classical music, you're going to see a lot of mixed time signatures in the music, okay? So I want to educate you now, so when you see that, you won't be shocked. You already know, okay? So whenever you see something 2/4 time, remember the top number tells you how many beats are in the measure. So if it's 2, there's going to be 2 beats in the measure. Now, when you're counting beats in a measure, it can roll over to the end of the and. So it can go 1 and 2 and, or 1 and 2 and 3 and, or 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. It cannot roll over to the next count. So if it's in 2/4, it can't go to 3. If it's in 4/4, it can't go to 5. If it's in 3/4, it can't go to 4, okay? You have to stay in that bracket of counting. You can't change it. So like when you look at that music, you see the bar lines. That's that line that's coming straight down, okay? That's the bar line. That separates your music, okay? And if you keep going all the way to the end of the music, you see a double bar line. That's like a period. That's like saying, okay, stop. That's the end of the music, unless it keeps going, all right? Sometime it do, sometime it don't. Just depends on how long the piece is, okay? Okay, let's look at the basic rhythms. This is a sheet that you'll see in front of you, okay? It's already dealing with, we already talked about the rhythm tree, the eighth notes, and all that good stuff, the counts you get, okay? But if you look down the sheet, you start seeing where they got beats together. Like you'll see one that has quarter notes and eighth notes and half notes, okay? All those are mixed up. Now, at the end of it, it's asking you, what is the count, okay? So if I had 2 half notes, we know a half note gets 2 beats, okay? So if I had 2 half notes, it would be what? 4, right, okay? So just like a whole note is how many beats? 4, right. So let me see if I can trick you up a little bit. I'm not trying to, but I'm just going to see if you're on your A game. All right. So if we had 2/8 notes and 1/4 note, what would it be? Because we know it takes 2/8 notes to equal 1/4 note. Okay. So if we had 2/8 notes, which technically is 1, and we have a 1/4 note, how many beats is that? Right. 2. Okay. So remember we talked about odd meters? Like you can see an odd meter, and it's rarely you see it in elementary school or high school. But just for the sake of it, if I had a whole note and 2/4 notes and another whole note, what would that be? So we got a whole note, which is 4, 2/4 notes, which is what? 6. Then I added another whole note. So we got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's still an irregular time signature because the count is so high. Okay? It's still irregular. All right? So let's do one more. Okay? Let's say I got an 1/8 note, a 1/4 note, and a 1/2 note. So again, I got an 1/8 note, a 1/4 note, and a 1/2 note. So I already got 2 and 1 is 3. So now technically I have a dotted note, okay? Because a dotted note is half of its previous beat. So if I had a 1/4 note, that dot is going to represent half of it, okay? So really it's 3 dot, or should I say a dotted half note, okay? Because it's going to come out to 3, all right? Anytime you see a dot on music, if it's a dotted 1/4 note, if it's a dotted whole note, a dotted half note, it's half of its value, okay? So if you see a dot on a 1/4 note, you know it's going to be half of its value, so it's going to be a half note, okay? So we already know 1 and 2 because we added a dot and it's half its value, okay? So that's how you do that. Dots can be confusing, but you see dots in music all the time, okay? At any level, you can see a dot. Just remember, a dot is half of the previous note's value because it'll be right behind the note. So if it had a 1/4 note, it would be a 1/4 note and a dot behind it. Whole note, and a dot behind it, okay? To let you know that that is half of the value, okay? So you're going to extend it that long, okay? One more thing I want you to pay attention to on some more sheet of music that you have in front of you. You see the music, it goes all the way to the end, but then you see 2 dots at the solid black line, and then there's a skinny black line. Those 2 dots mean repeat, okay? So when you see repeat, you got to go all the way back to the beginning of that line, okay? That's a repeat, where you have to repeat it, okay? Now, sometime in music, you'll see where there's actually notes written, then you'll see something that looks like a little asterisk, where you see a slash and a dot and a dot. That means repeat the previous measure, okay? So when you see that in a measure and it just looks like that, okay, you got to go back and repeat that measure, okay? That's simple stuff. It may sound a little mind-boggling right now because it's new to you, but once you start seeing it in music, it'll make a lot more sense, okay? And all that is right in front of you on your music, okay? It's right in front. Just take your time and study. Theory is fun, but it's just like math. That's all it is. Theory is just like math. So we're going to move on to our next sheet, and I'm going to talk about something else. But before I do, let's talk about a beat. What is a beat? What is it? What's a beat? A beat is the pulse of a note, okay? It's the pulse of a note. That's the pulse. And if you want to go even deeper, your heart beats at 140 BPM. And we know BPM is what? Beats per minute. Okay? So your heart sitting still like I'm sitting right now, my heartbeat should be beating at 140 BPM. Okay? Now your heart can elevate if you're doing something extreme like exercising or doing something like that. Then it's going to change. Your pulse is going to change. The heartbeat's going to change. But just sitting still, just remember, your heartbeat is 140 BPM. Okay? That's something that I taught you. And it didn't even cost you no money. All right? So let's move on to our next sheet of music. Okay, so you can see now in front of you, we got that music in front of you that has the dots, the dotted half notes, okay? On that music, I highlighted all the dotted half notes so it can alert you to let you know that that measure has to come out to 3. Okay, we talked about already the top number tells you how many beats in the measure. Now, one thing that you can remember, every time you see a time signature, if you're reading music and you're writing it out, okay, always write it in pencil, never in pen, okay? Pen does not look good on music that you have to pass on to the next student because you have to white it out. Pencil, you can just erase it, okay? Because what needs to be alerted for you may not need to be alerted for the next student, okay? So that's why we do things in pencil, okay? So also at the end of the music, you see those dots. The dots mean what? Repeat, exactly, okay? And it's going to always be a solid black line and then a little skinny line, okay? Also in music, sometimes you see something that looks sort of like an asterisk almost, not quite, but it's a slash and it has a dot and a dot, okay? That means that you're going to repeat the previous measure, okay? So if you see like a measure, then it has that slash and the dot on top and on the bottom, that's a repeat sign too. It's telling you that you need to repeat the previous measure. No matter where it falls out in the music, you still have to repeat the previous measure, okay? So we did some theory today. I hope you learned something. I hope it's helpful. So on our next segment, we're going right back to playing, okay? So I hope you'll be ready for it because we're going to do some challenging stuff, all right? Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you on our next segment. Have a good one.
Thank you, Mr. Garner, and thank you to all the other classroom teachers today. They will all be back next Wednesday with lessons again targeted for our 3rd and 4th grade students. Tune in tomorrow, Thursday, for lessons for grades 5 and 6. Thank you all for joining us today. Have a great day, and remember, continue learning throughout the day.